Super excited to be here. Everyone's super excited to be here. Welcome to our webinar today. My name is Charlie Liu. I am a partner of Basis, and I've been working with them for quite some time now. It is a tool, as well as a company that I really enjoy working with, and I utilize them for my clients. So in terms of today's session, pretty exciting. They have some great new stuff coming out of the software that's going to make your life a lot easier in terms of setting up what you're reporting, planning, forecasting, BVAs, dashboards, what that could look like, right? So really honored to have the chance to showcase this for everyone here, right? But basically, yeah, I'm going to show you guys how you can actually get set up with Basis yourself, right? You don't need a partner like me. You can just basically go in and sign up, and I'll show you what it looks like as well. And then I'll kind of give you the tools, the tips, the tricks that you need to set up your Basis instance. And it is really something you can do in 30 minutes, 1 hour, depending on the complexity of your business, of course, and really get your business set up so that you can start looking at your data and start getting that financial intelligence. So one thing really exciting with Basis right now, this is fresh out of the box, basically came out within the last couple of days. At this point, you don't even have to talk to sales rep. You can just go online, hit in the sign up now, and you're actually going to be able to create an account with Basis, log into QBO, and start importing your data, your financials, right? So I'll walk you through what that looks like, right? Basically, you go to sign up. I'm already a user, so I'm not going to go through that account setup, login, things like that, right? You can just basically log in with your Google or Apple account as well, right? So create a company, right? All you have to do is just give a few details in here. This is going to help some of the AI engine to figure out what templates, what mapping that we need to do for your accounts, right? So basically pick the size of the company. And I know some of the audience here are fractional CFOs, fractional controllers, fractional bookkeepers as well. Basis is a great platform to manage your clients and give them the interface to their budget, their reports, their P&L, their actuals as well, right? So you can pick what that looks like. Give it a name. Today, I'm just going to call it Charlie Test Webinar Company. All right. Kind of pick the starting fiscal year, right? So for anyone here who has a different fiscal year versus a calendar year, not an issue. It doesn't really matter. For Basis, you can change that. And then basically put in and start figuring out what your plan range is. For today, it's just for 2 years, but this will grow and evolve over time as well. So you have more options, right? You hit setup, right? Basis is going to allow you to pick in your accounting systems as well. Basis does have a slew of other systems you can integrate as well. Later, I'll show you actually what that looks like. But for today, the onboarding flow does start with just your typical accounting system. And the two most common these days are definitely QuickBooks and Xero, right? It's going to basically take you to the QuickBooks login page. You're going to log into your QuickBooks and you can start pulling that data into Basis. I'm not going to do that today because I only have one QuickBooks account and that is already connected. But in your process, you're going to get QuickBooks connected. And the cool part is there's actually some AI built in, so it can actually start mapping a lot of the data, the accounts into your instance for you. For me today, I'm actually going to show you how do we actually set up with a brand new empty canvas. This is something that's useful to know, right? The AI will take care of some of this for you, but for anyone that's actually looking to set up some custom schedules, reports, it's the same tools, which is why I want to show you how do we set one up from scratch. Earlier, I did tell you that with Basis, it can connect to a number of different systems, right? This is the whole catalog of all the systems we can connect to, right? For now, the onboarding process only gives you QuickBooks and Xero. But with Basis, you can basically connect to any of the standard financial CFO tech stack that you have for your business or your client's business, right? In today's session, I just have QuickBooks set up, right? In our instance, it is called Way Enterprise, right? So I am going to be working with Batman. I'm going to be working with Bruce. We're going to pull that data into Basis and show you how Bruce would actually run his or their own BVAs, right? And like I said earlier, this is a blank instance, right? I don't have anything set up yet. So I'm going to show you how we do that from scratch, right? So I'm going to go into here. I'm going to basically hit import. I'm going to pull in that data from my QBO setting. And the nice thing here is it brings in that QBO accounting or zero accounting metadata, that information about the type of accounts we have. If you have classes, this will actually come up here as well. It is a toggle that we can turn on in Basis, so you can leverage your classes for your departments, your functional groups, or your product lines, right? In this case, I am looking at income, so I'm going to hit income. I'm going to select all my income accounts, save integration, and just like that, I am completed a section for income. I can do this for cost of sales as well. And basically, I'm just going to quickly go through all of them to bring that data for us for my P&L. I am probably going to skip out on the balance sheet side today, but the idea is the same, right? You basically map out by the type. And also for some of you, right, if you don't want to report based off the exact same structure that you have in QuickBooks, you want some flexibility, you want a different reporting structure, maybe something related to a management or managerial accounting structure, right? Not an issue there. For that instance, you don't actually have to follow this filter that I'm using. You can also cherry pick the accounts you want as well. I have worked with some other clients, for example, in the non-for-profit spaces, right? Sometimes they want to move expense accounts into COGS, or sometimes they have contract expenses, they want to move that into revenue as well, right? In QBO, it might be one filter, one setting, one tag, right? But for us, we don't have to follow that. You can really expand this and pick exactly which accounts you want to see and really just cherry pick what you want in each section, right? For now, I'm just going to follow what we have in here, bring in my expenses. And then for this example for Bruce, unfortunately, in my Wayne Enterprise, my Bruce example, we don't have too many other income or expenses, so I'm going to skip that. But as you saw, in a matter of a few seconds, if I did a little bit faster without presenting and talking, I basically have my income, my COGS, my expenses mapped up to your QBO account. And as you can see, right, we have the data brought in, we have the charter account, we have some information brought in from QBO as well, and then we have the actuals, right? So for anyone that's watching, right, of course you can do this in Google Sheets or Excel, but the whole idea is Basis makes this a little bit easier for you, right? Every month, right, you close your books, you come into Basis if you want to roll the solution forward. Just tell the system, my accounting books are closed. I want to roll this forward, right? And what happens is Basis will take a copy of what your data used to look like. So I always have that historical forecast, that budget. So you can always do your BVAs, right? But again, it is a rolling forecasting tool as well. So right now, for example, my forecast starts in December, my actuals goes up until November, right? So in that instance, you roll forward your Basis setting. December will now become actuals. It will bring your latest data from QBO, and then your first forecasting months will basically start in July, right? Making that roll forward process a lot easier, a lot cleaner, right? For anyone that's sitting and watching, if you think about what that looks like today, right? Especially in Google Sheets or Excel, what do you have to do, right? You have to copy the model over, right? You have to paste data from your exports from QBO or Zero into that environment. Maybe you have to take a snapshot. What's really painful is the BVA, right? The budget versus actuals, right? You have to combine actuals, the fresh actuals you brought in, with a copy of the budget from your last workbook, right? Different ways you can do it, but it's not a click of a button, right? So now I have brought in the data for you, right? That first piece, and just let everyone know in terms of the onboarding setup, right? So if you actually got us connected, you actually have your own instance as well. And I'll show you what that looks like as well. You actually have a lot of this pre-mapped, right? This is what I was describing earlier with the AI intelligence, right? We're going to map the accounts for you. You still have to check if we have the right accounts, right? For anyone that's playing with some of the AI, the LLM models today, they're not going to be 100% accurate, right? So the reality is you still have to add some additional accounts to the tables, to the sections that you need, right? But in addition to that, the out-of-the-box solutions will give you the dashboards pre-built as well. Do not worry, these are all customizable, right? So if you want to move them up and down, if you want to delete them, if you want to change your dashboards, you still have that full functionality, full flexibility. We're just trying to make it a little bit easier so that you can get that time to value, you can get set up a little bit faster, right? And out of the box, right, you have three different dashboards. You can always add additional ones as well, right? You're going to get an executive summary, right? So that monthly meeting with all the execs, your head of sales, head of product, or your CEO. You can take a look at what that looks like, right? Look at cash runway, right? There's probably a lot of startups that's watching this, right? And cash is king, right? For us, we can help you forecast your cash flow, right? Figure out how your runway looks like. And one of the things I'll get into a little bit later today scenarios, right? So you can talk about your AOP, your budget. And on top of that, I always recommend creating a best case, worst case, right? And see what the business looks like. Sometimes there are comfortable discussions, but as business leaders, you need to have an idea what that looks like, right? Beyond that, we also have a financial dashboard as well, right? So this is your typical financials, right? You get a P&L, your balance sheet, and a cash flow as well, right? And then we'll have a financial trends, right? And a little bit later today, when I go back to my way instance where I have a bit more data, a little bit more meat, I'll show you how we can add some charts, some new KPIs to your dashboards as well, right? So far, what have I done? I have shown you how we can get started from basis from scratch. I've shown you what that looks like out of the box. Yours will actually be a little bit better than mine because you actually have your data mapped out. But basically, right after you set up, you'll have some dashboards reporting your data, right? So what do we do next, right? So a couple of things. We'll talk about process and onboarding as well, but I'll also talk about giving you the tips, the tools in terms of setting up your reports or templates as well. But for everyone who's watching, right, every time you import data into a reporting tool, every time you build a model, please remember you have to run some data validations, right? We have some AI intelligence built in. We have brought in the data, but please make sure that the data is correct so that you are looking at the actual data, the correct data to help you make better business decisions, right? So now let's assume you finish bringing the data, you fix some of the accounts mapping. Maybe you have to remove some of these. If you really need to remove it, simply just hit delete, very simple. And if you need to add a different account or a different table, same thing as what we saw earlier. Go to import, go select your QBO or zero instance and bring that data into the correct section, bucket, or table, right? Now, what can we do with this data now? Of course, if you have the dashboards, data will be populated, but with Basis, what you're going to get is you're going to have these tables. In terms of how I think of it is this is where you house your data. This could be your actuals, this could be your forecast. You're going to have some assumptions, some drivers you can utilize to forecast. I'll show you what it looks like in a sec. You're going to have some output metrics as well. But right here, this workbook, that's where we combine the data to give you your reports, right? As you can see, right, we have my actuals, I have my income, and you can see I already actually have some of the grouping set up as well. If you want to change that, just hit grouping categories, and then you're going to actually start combining that data as well, right? So you're going to get this P&L, right? This income statement. Let's see something a bit more exciting. Let's see my expenses, right? Let me group this. And if you have categories, subtype of departments in here as well. Oh, not very useful since they're all just expenses. This is going to give you the combined report where you can start slicing and dicing that data. Let me take a look at the data as well for a sec right here, right? So detail type is something that could be useful for me to group this data, right? So let me go to profit and loss, right? In this case, I'm going to change that to detail type. And now, so you can see, right, that's your money shot right there, right? You have that expense breakdown, right? We can look at it by functional groups. What was our personnel cost, right? For most businesses, it's one of the largest, if not the largest cost category that you have, right? And then you can start kind of breaking it down by research and development, marketing, as well as I said earlier, if you have classes, right, we can bring that in as well. You can absolutely group your data by class. And one thing I forgot to mention, right, if anyone that's doing row 4 in Excel Google Sheets today, pretty painful bringing that data from QBO via class because you kind of have to export that data 1 month at a time by class, or basically get a report that has all your classes by columns and then somehow section that data for the correct part of your P&L or your report, your model, right? And basically going to take care of that for you, right? So, and one thing for everyone to be aware of as we're working in the workbook level, always saved and update this. The reason this is not updated and saved in real time is just because This environment is actually shared across multiple users as well, right? So you can have a personal view and you have a company view. Sometimes we just want to slice and dice the data a little bit differently, bring some additional scenarios, some comparisons, but you don't want to affect that for the whole company, for all the stakeholders looking at this data, right? So in that case, if you do want to actually push this across all your different users, make sure you update this. Think, Speaking of sharing, right? Basis is a collaboration tool as well, right? So as it's built, immediately you can start sharing with the different users, right? And fairly straightforward, you basically invite the different users. And once you have the users invited into the system, we're going to have a permission tab. You're going to be able to tell exactly who sees what, right? No longer do we have this Google Sheet Excel scenario where you copy different workbooks, right? Segment what they're supposed to see, what they're not supposed to see, and manage that workflow, right? And that can add hours or days to your monthly reporting process. This will take care of it for you immediately, right? So in here, basically figure out which user you want to use, right? Kind of pick whichever scenario you want to give them access to. In this case, Amanda, right? I'm giving that user different access, right? I basically cherry pick which workbook I want to give them access to. And in terms of workbooks, you can actually define those tables, these blocks you want to give them access as well. And you can completely control if they have view access or edit access as well, right? And beyond the granularity level, you have a few different tiers of user access, right? You can be a user, really that's where you have the permission in terms of looking at different tables, different reports, or you can have a global admin level as well, right? So now we talked about how do we get you set up in terms of getting data brought in, how do we have some of the reports, right? We have the actuals, how do we get the budget, right? So with Basis, you're going to be able to build a budget and a forecast as well. In your live scenario, your main scenario that you're going to start off with, you're going to have a base forecast scenario. It is a rolling forecast. You're going to have your actuals. And like I said earlier, every month we close our books, we shift the ending period, right? You'll have your latest actuals and we're going to change your starting forecast column, right? We're going to be able to create budgets as well, right? And the difference in your budget is all you have to do is you create a scenario, right? Instead of a forecast scenario, we're going to create a budget scenario. And the only difference is if I want to create a budget scenario, I say basically put in what is my start and end for my budget. In that case, that is something you can change, you can edit. And one other difference is your budget will never be rolled forward. The actuals are not going to be updated. That will be updated in your rolling forecast that has your latest actuals, right? Now, how do we actually build a budget, right? How do we build some calculations? How do we do some inputs? Very straightforward. Whole idea is Basis will actually streamline this and make this easier if you're working in a basic spreadsheet, right? We still love spreadsheets, right? You can definitely do your ad hoc analysis, some models on the fly. We're never going to leave that and lose that, but Basis is going to supplement and improve your financial reporting process, right? So how do we work with this? And what I usually recommend clients is start with a rolling forecast. I love it because it will take your latest data and it's a really good starting point for my budget or forecast. I'm actually going to do that for all my accounts. And then we're going to define and refine my nuances, my inputs, my specific calculations afterwards, right? With specific schedules, right? But this, we're just going to leverage our actual historical data coming from our accounting system and utilize for that for our general forecast at the starting point, right? And the beautiful part is every month we close our books. Well, the latest data is going to come in. We're going to be able to reforecast that. So what does that look like, right? So the difference here is it is still a grid, it's still a table, very spreadsheet-like, but instead of referencing A1 to C5, right? All we have to do is using plain standard English. What am I looking for? In this line, I'm looking at sales, and I want to take a trailing average. Then I simply search sales. I am going to do a trailing average. I'm going to pick 3 months. And as you can see, this is going to basically calculate and sum up the last 3 months for you. Now from here, to calculate an average, right, then I have to divide this by the number of months that we have, right? And the whole idea is this, once it's built, I tell customers, just build that formula first, drag this across all the different accounts that we have, paste this to the end of my scenario, and boom, Very simple. Might not be useful yet, but a very simple forecast that you've started and pre-populated based on your historical data. Now I can start defining this, right? Let's say for this marketing revenue, Bruce starts a brand new product line, right? In terms of weighing enterprise marketing, um, professional services, right? We don't have any historicals, we don't have any actuals yet. In that case, I might just want to plug in a number, right? Simple, like any spreadsheets, I can just key in what that looks like. And this month, it's going to be $6,000, right? If I wanted to use some drivers, like I said earlier as well, right? I can have assumptions as well. Let's say I have this tour trip, this tour rise, right? A Batmobile tour ride. Apparently, Wayne Enterprise is offering a vacational or travel experience, right? And for basic experience, let's say it's just a simple model where I have the number of trips times the average price, right? I'm just gonna go here and put in unit price or average price, right? And then we're gonna have number of trips per month, right? We're also gonna have settings in here as well. So if it is not a dollar figure, I can change this to a numerical percentage as well, right? And let's just say we're starting this off, right? Let's say fairly affordable, right? It's for the kids out there, it's $50 per ride, right? And then for the trips per month, right? Let's say it's 1,000, right? Bruce is pretty busy. Not gonna be able to go over 1,000 per month, right? Let's copy this until the end of the plan. And then I can start adjusting this a little bit more. Let's see some seasonality. Maybe February, we have Valentine's Day. For some reason, this is a hot time to go on a Batmobile tour guide, right? So we'll do 5,000. So now we have some of those drivers for using to build our forecast now. And in this case, instead of taking a trailing average, all I'm going to do is instead of this formula, again, plain old English, average price this month, multiply trips per month, copy this until the end of my forecast. And just like that, you have a driver-based forecast. You have a schedule-based forecast. I know some of you guys watching this to say this is pretty simple. I can do units times price in Excel model as well. But if you think about it, I've really just given you all the fundamental pieces that you need to build a complicated model as well. Because if you think about a model, what do you have? You have your latest data. You have some drivers, you have some formulas. I showed you a multiplication, but it's the same thing if you want to do division, multiplication, addition, subtraction, right? All that is available, right? This basically gives you all the pieces for you to grow and expand and build upon your model that's from your starting point from basis, right? Beyond that, what other superpowers do we have in basis as well? It does come with a whole slew of different out-of-the-box templates as well, right? For example, every company has headcount. It's one of the largest costs. We're going to have an out-of-the-box template that you can use in basis as well, right? So as you can see, with basically a few buttons, we have a template spit out of the box, right? We have the actual drivers all set up as well. And if you need to, you can always add additional tables for different departments, different teams. We have different schedules for hourly employees, different revenue model, deferred revenue. Those templates are out of the box, so you don't have to start from scratch for everything, right? The idea is you start with basis very quickly, right? Use the out-of-the-box template so you can give value super fast. And then you can tailor and customize some of your own calculation, your own schedules afterwards, just like what I did earlier with that Batmobile trip part of the business, right? So as you can see here, I have a fully functional HR template built out, right? I can start adding the employees. I'm doing this manually right here just because I don't have an HRIS account like Gusto or ADP, but basically will actually allow you to connect those systems and import that data for you, right? So in this case, I just have manual inputs. I don't have a system, right? I'm going to add myself. Let's say I am a manager, right? Put in start date. Let's say I've been working for some time, right? Let's say I still work here. I still have my job, right? And then let's say I get 80,000 per month, right? And the nice part is the calculations are already built up for you, right? So you can see the changes. You can start adding additional headcount into this roster, right? Your number of headcount, the churn, right? Bonuses, a lot of these calculations out of the box already predefined for you, right? Let's add in a couple more. All right, let's just for sake, let's just make this a little bit easier. I'm just gonna copy this. All right. Just make it a bit more interesting, right? And now we have a few headcount right now. If you want to reference this, right? Again, like I said, we can build these calculations you want. A lot of times we have a lot of expenses that are dollar per headcount, like your laptops, like your software, right? Zoom, Salesforce, they are priced per user, right? So in this case, let's say sales and marketing software, right? Very similar to what we saw earlier. I'm using plain English. I want to use headcount, right? Look up my total headcount. I did put it in product development, so let's pretend I did it in sales, right? What is it this month? Times it by, let's say, $120 for a typical tech stack for the sales team. Probably a little bit higher, but let's just use 120 for now, right? And just like that, right, we'll have the calculations built out, right? So I do have to double check. Oh, this is actually a great opportunity. What happens if it doesn't look the way that you expect, right? So I expected a number in here because we do have headcount. I just want to also highlight, right, the calculations are in plain English as well. So you can actually troubleshoot a little bit easier. I can actually click on that, and that's actually going to take me to the data as well, right? Oh, so it looks like I made a quick mistake right here. I should have actually pulled this one, right, instead of the other one. So in this case, I just pulled it wrong, different headcount metric, right? But as long as you pull that, you're going to have the calculations. And one thing I wanted to really highlight is because the calculation is in plain English, you don't have to be an Excel or Google Sheet guru. The moment you see these calculations, you're going to understand, right, what are the drivers, what are reasons to calculate this as well, right? Now, beyond this, there's additional things we're going to have in basis as well. I think we're going to be a little bit out of time today, right? For next session, we could talk a bit more about in terms of how do we use a SaaS revenue template? How do we create some additional dashboard? I know I promised to do that today, but we're a little bit out of time, right? Maybe next session we can cover that as well. Right? We'll show you how to build a dashboard from scratch. How do we add additional tables, schedules? How do we set up a full-fledged working model for all your different functional groups, right? A lot of users coming to OnPlan. The whole idea is to get that departmental P&L, right? To show you what that looks like as well. I am going to show you a sneak peek what that looks like, right? Next session, we can definitely talk about how it's built, right? This is an example of what a full-blown solution could look like, right? You're going to have different workbooks. For example, right here, I have my employee, same setup as what we saw earlier. I basically just renamed it, right? So I'm going to have different tables, different schedules for different departments. This one's for headcount. I have another one for expenses, right? I am getting very granular. I'm getting to my vendor level. For a lot of clients that's very focused on cash flow forecasting. This is the way you do it. You have to do this level, vendor level of details to really think about where you're spending your money. And that's going to be useful for us in terms of building a direct cash flow as well, right? And then lastly, but not least, right, the whole idea is you can create those departmental BVAs, right? You can create different reports for different teams, right? So they can measure their success. They can look at their actuals. They can look at their budget. They can see how they're performing against plan. They can take a look at what their headcount roster looks like, what their vendor looks like, right? So for the finance folks, you might not be comfortable sharing everything, but this is where the collaboration comes in. You create a dashboard just for them. And you share just what they need to see as well, right? And yeah, so to me, that's a pretty quick overview. You should have all the ingredients, tools you need to basically set up basis from scratch, right? And James, do we have any questions for today?
Absolutely. You answered two of them already. One was how do I share reports or set access? So you showed that earlier. And then you also answered a question about how does roll forward work? But we have two other questions. One is,
Perfect.
can we do consolidations in basis?
Yes, you can. So one of the interesting pieces, and I'm sure a lot of the audience watching is you're aware, QuickBooks Since Zero does not allow you to do consolidations. What happens is typically you have one QuickBooks instance per company, right? Company A, B, C. So what basis, what you can actually do is you can add multiple accounting systems, they don't have to be QuickBooks as well, right? Earlier I said I did mention I'm a partner. I've actually did a project where we have four NetSuite instance, one QuickBooks and one Zero. Right. The whole idea is you can connect to different instances. And for a future setting, for a future session, I'll actually show you some best practices, what that look like. And there's a multitude of different ways, right? It's a bigger discussion. I'm not going to get into that today, but you can definitely run different entities, run consolidations into basis, and even apply FX. So even if you are a multinational, multi-entity, you're going to be able to cover your reporting, BVA forecasting basis.
Great. And then looks like people are wondering about complexity. They use classes. Like, how would they work in basis?
Yeah, so earlier I did mention like we can bring big classes as well, right? So if your instance does have classes in the setting where we have the data connection, just turn it on. The reason we have it segmented by functional group is sometimes you don't need it for everything. Right? For most business I know, if especially if they're using classes for department, you don't need it for revenue. So keep it simple, right? And then you just turn it on where it's applicable. And then when you map that data earlier, just like how I showed you, there will be a class tab, and from there, you're going to be able to filter your data by class.
Great. And that was the last of the questions. We also had one statement that was one attendee said they're excited to learn. So Charlie, thank you so much.
I appreciate it. We're going to be running these pretty frequently, right? So let us know if you have anything else that you want to see, right? We'll have different topics as well to help you enable you so that you can build what you need in basis.
Awesome. Thanks everybody. We plan to have this as a weekly webinar. So be on the lookout for the next invite.
Bye.